Okay, welcome to this next episode of YouTube, and we want to take this time to honor Aidan and Denali, who turned 5 years of age tomorrow on April 27th. And we'll start with some footage of them at 17 days of age. As we said, typically we like to get the pups at the neonate stage, somewhere between 12 to 14 days of age is our typical pattern, and we start introducing them to humans at that young of an age so that they are acclimated to people in a captive life. These animals are born in captivity. We do not have any wolves here that are taken from the wild, nor do we have any wolves here that are capable of release to the wild, meaning they are subspecies representative of our wolves that are of the Great Plains subspecies, of the Arctic subspecies, or of the Northwestern subspecies, all populations that have good numbers in the wild and that do not have a release program. So with that said, we work with the wolves here to try to make sure they're as relaxed as possible to, be able to interact and display behavioral patterns that help educate the public about wolves. And so we thought we would feature this week on YouTube a kind of a review of what life was like for Aidan and Denali when they joined the pack. And back when they joined the pack, Grizzer was still a member, Maya was still a member, and Shadow Malik were still members. So we saw four wolves that were existing and two more pups added with Aidan and Denali. And we saw Aidan's life was a little bit challenging there in those first years of life in the pack. He was kind of the focus of Maya, and he kind of maintained himself on the bottom of the rank order. But what you see is, again, regardless of the difference between Grizzer as a representative of the Great Plains subspecies and Aidan as a representative of the Northwestern subspecies, and Shadow Malik as the Arctic subspecies, or Arctos subspecies, they all seem to have the same kind of patterns. These are social carnivores who live by body language interactions, by dominance and rank order and hierarchy, and their communication is across the subspecies boundaries. And so we do see, as even though, like I said, we had three subspecies at one time in this exhibit, we see wolves, and we see wolves acting like wolves. The one thing to notice here is, obviously, Maya is the only female here. She's very assertive, and she was very close to Shadow. You saw a rub on her chin with Shadow, but she continues to hold her tail very high. She does a lot of scraping behavior, a lot of marking, and carried herself very, very well as the dominant female in this exhibit. Grizzer, who at the time when those Aidan and Denali were introduced in 2008, really was far more socially engaging and not very disciplinary with these pups, which later became an issue in his life when Denali started testing him and continued to assert rank over him. But Grizzer was doing some of the same behaviors that we filmed today with Grizzer, only the difference is he's in with wolves doing these same behaviors versus when you see him film now, he's doing it with wolf care staff. But that rolling on his back, spinning, being in a subordinate posture, that's typical Grizzer personality. And so when Aidan and Denali came in, Grizzer didn't display any dominance towards them. He was nothing more than a big juvenile kind of with them. Aidan, and you'll see Grizzer here kind of doing a slide down past Aidan. And like I said, there was a different relationship between Maya and Grizzer and the new pups in 2008. So Grizzer doing the Grizzer 500. You can see that's not just for wolf care staff. That's something he does for interacting with the other wolves as well when he was a pack member there. But as we said, the life for Aidan was a little bit different. He was a little more likely to get some dominance from Maya. He was a little more likely to get some restrictive behaviors from the rest of the wolves versus Denali, and this is Denali interacting with Grizzer here. Denali didn't have much for dominance from Maya, and so that allowed Denali to really kind of push his status, and that led to, again, some later issues between Denali and Grizzer that resulted in Grizzer being retired a little bit earlier. So, like I said, there are going to be 5. It's hard to believe that this footage you're watching here, they're still just juveniles kind of going through the motions and trying to, find their way in the pack and see where they fit in, and doing the kind of the jaw sparring wrestling that we're seeing of Luna and Bolts today. But that's the nature of wolves. The young grow up, they mature, they take on different roles, and right now Aidan is taking on the role of kind of being the pack leader. This is a clip where Aidan, who seems to do this quite a bit, where he kind of whines, does a little bit of a paw on the ground, and gets the pups excited, and they follow him. They will, go where he goes, and that is a common thing for Aidan, to really get the pups to kind of rally with him. So we see some of that obnoxious testing kind of behavior going on here now, and just a different generation. And so this is kind of the nature of young wolves. They've got to show their place and find their place in the pack. And this is kind of the nature of young females. So when I go back to Maya's world, and then I look at Luna, there's some similarities there. And again, personalities are pretty strong. Females have a tendency to be a little bit more intense, and we're seeing that kind of thing with Luna. Now, one thing to notice here, Luna does not have hackles up. That just happens to be juvenile hair that doesn't settle down very well. This isn't an aggressive situation, nor is this a hackle response here. It's just juvenile hair on a wet snow day that doesn't lay down very well. You'll see that until they're about 2 or 3 before we start seeing some really normal coat conditions that you can actually call hackles. But in this case, this is Aidan rolling over and doing a submissive grab or a foreleg stab towards Bolts and Luna. So you can see here just a clear kind of, a pattern of Aidan. He is social. He is engaging. He's not one of these put you down kind of dominant pack leaders. He puts his point across, or he gets discipline when he needs to discipline the pups. He does, but for the most part, he's pretty laid back, and he seems to have developed a pretty good relationship with both individuals. Luna gets a little bit hard on him sometimes, and pushes a little bit, but Bolts is very respectful. You can see Bolts is, not showing any overt testing behavior. He's very, very timid. He comes over and he really wants to engage with Denali, and as well as Aidan. Aidan's down on the ground there. Denali's doing a little bit of a foreleg stab. Now for Denali, that's Aidan's down, and there's an opportunity to maybe take advantage of Aidan. But what we find is that Denali doesn't really seem to look for that leadership role much. No doubt he likes to take advantage of Aidan once in a while, but if there's something clearly going on, Aidan is the pack leader, and there's no dispute about that. And that seems to what has been settled out. Now, what's interesting is that Aidan came from the bottom. Like I said, when he was first introduced, his first year was at the bottom of the rank order, and Maya pretty much kept him under control. And maybe he learned a lot from Maya. That's part of that social communication between the wolves. Right now, though, we see, like I say, a good resting behavior. We had alluded to the fact earlier that we're seeing some of that autoimmune disorder issue come back, but that seems to be under control. Again, we're not treating it, we're just kind of monitoring it. I think stress is one of those things that can trigger these autoimmune disorders. And so we're trying to keep Aidan relatively calm, trying to keep him relatively stress-free. And as you can see here, he's pretty easily relaxed. Denali is chewing on who knows what, beaver, deer, something. And Aidan is just comfortably resting right with him. So that's good, and that's something, like I say, we'll always watch compatibility. Grizzer, he's, obviously a social pack animal, and that is one of those things that is hard for us. Certainly would be nice if Grizzer could be in with the rest of the group, but as I alluded to, the testing from Denali was just a little bit more intense, and because Grizzer wasn't asserting a lot of dominance when Denali was younger, he wasn't gaining a lot of respect when Denali was older, and it just became problematic. And that's why, for Grizzer's safety, he is separated from the exhibit pack, and for Malik's safety is why he's separated from the retired pack, because Malik was one of those individuals that Grizzer used to focus on. So what we have to do is we have to make sure that Grizzer has adequate stimulus from the wolf care staff, as well as from opportunities of Oscar through the fence, etc. So when we want to introduce new wolf care staff to the program, we will start with Grizzer. So Grizzer always gets the new stimulus, gets to smell, the new handlers that are coming in, and we don't introduce people very often, but we will be, obviously, we're always kind of on the lookout for someone who may be able to help out the program and help interact with, especially with Grizzer, to make sure that we can maximize his social contact with people. And then over in retirement, actually, we've got a long clip of howling, several minutes of howling here that I'm going to end with. But as the snow melts, things come out of the snow. I found 2 dead ravens that may have been a while ago, but that are just coming out of the snow right now. And we're trying to keep the cameras up and rolling on these 2. And I'm just going to leave you with some howling. We start with Malik first and then kind of focus in on Shadow. This was started by Grizzer, actually, and then responded by Shadow Malik, and then on to the exhibit pack did howl as well. So that's it for this week's. Thanks for watching. Sorry about missing last week, but we had 18 inches of snow and a complete and utter snowed-in situation here. So not a lot got done last week, Friday. So thanks again for watching. We'll see you next week.